In China, where legal frameworks such as laws on the protection, disabled persons, and international treaties, such as UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with a Disability have been ratified, there exists a broad disparity between the legal rights and the right protection and everyday life. This is especially evident in the three areas: accessibility on the infrastructure, education, and employment. Firstly, many Chinese cities, especially those in the central and western regions, still lack the basic barrier field facility. Subways in the larger coast city can be equipped with wheelchair ramps and toilets, but the similar city and the rest of area, public transportation is not equipped with load for best buildings. More seriously, all the apartment buildings are built with elevators, so a lot of wheelchair use are basically housebound. Even taxpayer which is in prison is used upon by the pocket surrender of the city vendor and cannot be used. Second, in the education, a national policy formally promotes equality. Disabled students face standard inclusion. Regular schools are not keen on accepting students with a disability in autism. I use a seed of the logs research on the protection for the depression in the classroom. In some areas, especially where special education schools are few, students are actually to leave the regular educational style together. During examination, locked system device or the accessible examination has a far more disadvantage to these students. Third, there is a rampant discrimination in the employment. One as usually includes the requirements such as in good health or no disability, directly relevant in the principle of the equal opportunity. This reflects deeper social bias with people on the two of the production and the infraction and the feels of no indignity. Is widely assumed by the employer that disabled people or the poor work without considering judgment on the support of the management and what info on the disabled performance info well. In short, these issues are not product of the personal prejudice, but an institutional and social struggle weakness in China. Disability is much too often perceived of the personal or medicine social resilience as a social responsibility without stronger enforcement, inclusive parliaments, and cultural mind shift. The rights of persons with a disability which exist only on paper.
From a legal standpoint, laws such as the Law of the People's Republic of China on the protection of disabled persons and the regulations have clearly defined the basic rights that the disabled community should enjoy. In some economically developed regions, the government and social organizations can quickly implement the construction of barrier-free facilities. However, in the central and western parts of China and in underdeveloped rural areas, limited financial investment and weak infrastructure result in a significant gap between legal provisions and actual needs. For example, subways and buses in large coastal cities are generally equipped with wheelchair ramps and accessible restrooms, while in some countable cities, public transportation still lacks low-floor carriages or assistive boarding equipment, making it difficult for disabled individuals to travel safely. This exposes the inadequate coverage of public services in China for vulnerable groups when specifically discussing the human rights issues of people with disabilities. The perspective of multidimensional human rights is particularly important. And the following points highlight the real challenges faced on the China's national conditions. Although the nationwide and unified college entrance examination admission system theoretically provides the same competitive platform for all candidates, in practice, the special education resources required for disabled students are very limited. Many regions in central and western China even lacks specialized special education schools, leading to a division at the compulsory education stage. Furthermore, when disabled candidates face the national college entrance examination questions and harsher testing and EV environment, the lack of an accessible testing environment, assistive tools, and other supportive measures puts them at a disadvantage in the same examination.
Human rights theory emphasizes universality, inalienability, and equality, asserting that all individuals inherently possess fundamental rights. However, in China's reality, the existence of laws does not necessarily guarantee the actual fulfillment of those rights. Take the rights of persons with disabilities as an example. China has enacted the law on the protection of persons with disabilities and ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, both of which stipulate that persons with disabilities should enjoy equal access to education, employment, and social participation. However, in practice, uneven regional development has resulted in significant disparities in the protection of rights. First-tier cities offer relatively adequate accessibility, while grassroots areas often lack even basic infrastructure. For example, many urban buses still lack low floors or ramps, making it impossible for wheelchair users to board independently. Tagged paving for the visually impaired is often obstructed by electric scooters or street vendors, rendering it functional useless. This law on paper phenomenon, a lack of institutional accountability and public oversight. Without strong enforcement mechanisms, rights remain confined to legal texts. China is a highly secular state where public policy is not influenced by religion. However, this also means that value orientation relies heavily on dominant ideology and the social-cultural logic. Contemporary society places strong emphasis on efficiency and competition, leading to a functionalist tendency, valuing individuals based on whether they are useful or efficient, while neglecting their dignity and intrinsic worth. This tendency is particularly evident in how society treats people with disabilities. Job postings frequently include phrases such as "in good health" or "no disability," which clearly violate this principle of equal employment. In the field of education, many students with autism or other impairment are advised to lead mainstream schools, citing disruption to classroom order or lack of resources. Humanism provides a critical lens for reflection. It insists that people should be treated as ends in themselves, not as means, and that social value should not be based on ability. This is not merely an ethical position, but a practical safeguard of the principle of universality in human rights. A society that fails to treat all its members equally cannot achieve true legal fairness.
Expert is enemy and human rights. The insufficient protection of rights of the disabled in China reflects the enemy of Chinese society in daily life, study, and work. The social exclusion of the disabled reveals the contradictions during Chinese social transmission period. The exclusion isn't due to subjective malice, but rather stems from the enemy of the norms and cultural cognition. The essence of this contradiction is that disability hasn't yet been transformed from an individual medical category to a social environmental responsibility. For example, in the education system, here is a shortage of 120,000 teachers specializing in teaching disabled individuals, and the acceptance of disabled students in ordinary schools still remains at the level of not excluding than supportive integration. The seventh part is a conclusion. The deep predicament of safeguarding the rights of people with disabilities lies fundamentally in the contradictions between human rights awakening and world systems in the process of social governance. The main reason for enemy of human rights is that China has incorporated the human rights needs of people with abilities into the field of social welfare. Firstly, with the framework of the law, refine the mandatory technical standards for barrier for construction. Secondly, establish a teaching system for employment of people with disabilities so that they can have jobs. Finally, improve barrier for facilities to project their basic daily lives.